So catching up with Silicon Valley, we have someone who raised $200 million for his startups in the last 12 months. And that's Peter Pham. And we have Jeff Bonforte, who went the other way around, joining Yahoo, and they're both fascinating. So please join me on stage, Peter and Jeff. No, I'm only shaking your hand. That's it.
Hello.
All right. Hey, Peter. How are you?
Did you show the picture?
No, we should show the picture. I don't know if my team listens to me. I don't know that we should show this picture.
Now nobody knows the inside joke.
Yes. Let me see what I can do. Peter, you raised $200 million in 12 months.
24 months, but yes, and a lot of
24 months. Can you?
Impressive.
Can you explain what you're doing while I text my team to see if they can put that picture up?
Yeah, so I'm a co-founder of a company called Science. We're down in LA. Think of us as a company, but also an incubator of sorts. And the last 2.5 years I've been spending is a lot of our portfolio companies, and the model that we have is a lot different from most, which is I attend almost every pitch meeting with every one of our companies. So the companies you may have heard of are Dollar Shave Club, which is probably our most well-known one, and Dog Vacay. But there's about a dozen other companies that we've gone out and raised money for in the last 2 years. You know, I've personally have received over 2,000 no's, right?
2,000 no's?
Yes.
How does this work?
You know, the funnel generally, if we look at fundraising, and Jeff and I will talk about it, is that it's not as easy as you think, and it's all about volume and numbers when talking to investors, right? You
met 2,000 VCs.
No, my list is generally about 180 people. So I have about 180 VCs in all stages, right? You have your seed investors, your A's, your B's, and your C's, and your really late stage folks. But in all cases, I would say every round, I'm talking to 70 people about the idea, funneled down to maybe 30 people that might have interest in the concept and idea that want to hear more, 15 to 20 in-person meetings with the founders, 7 to 10, hopefully second and third meetings, and hopefully getting down to 1 to 2, or hopefully in some cases 5 term sheets.
So you have processed, you created a process pretty much like the CRM.
Yes, raising money is about making sure you're doing volume, and that at the end of the day, venture, some investors are great investors, some investors are followers, and so creating a story and a narrative and going down the process, in my opinion, most entrepreneurs probably don't understand how hard it is to raise money and the false positive signals that one would get and false negatives one would get to actually get money wired to your bank.
It takes longer, and it takes the entrepreneur longer than they think to get their story down, right? So we always say pitch budget before you pitch hurts, because you don't really get your mojo until you get a little bit of pitches behind you. So when I meet with entrepreneurs and help them out, I give them sort of the same advice, which is make sure you're out there with a lot of VCs. Do your pitch often and frequently. Make sure you're doing it to VCs you probably won't raise money from first, because it takes a while. In my career, I think my first VC pitch I ever did, Walden VC, I walked out, I was like, I fucking hate those guys, I'm never gonna. I mean, it went so terribly that everyone was disgusted at the table. It took me a couple months before.
But can you explain what you do, Jeff?
Oh, so
you work for Meur.
I've also raised $100 million, I just counted the other day, but I did it over 10 years. 10 years. No, for Zobni, we raised $37 million.
You raised $100 million on
in my career so far. Yeah. I did a startup in '97 called iDrive, which was basically Dropbox. We raised $40 million for that product back in '97 through 2001. I've done a bunch of startups. Gizmo, which sold to Google, I think we raised 10 or 15 for that, 10 or 12 million for that. Zobni, we did 37 million we raised for that. I think there have been others.
75 million.
Yeah, there's a lot of fundraising, and fundraising is.
Is that a criteria? Like you guys are you keep showing off on how much you raise.
No, trust me. I would return. I would prefer to return.
Who cares?
Fundraising is.
I raised 100. I raised 200.
I thought that was the thing we were trying to.
Is that the new size of your
No. Listen, Fundraising,
bigger than yours.
Every time I talk to an entrepreneur says, I'm about to raise, I say, look, that's preference, right? That means someone's going to get their money first before you get money if you sell. And so look, if you can bootstrap your business and build a business, absolutely. Fundraising, there's pros and cons around that, but I always say big numbers in front of you means there's preference, meaning get a $10 million check, $50 million check, you get sold for $50 million, that first $50 million goes out the door. Just know that preference exists. And, but depending on the startup that you do, there are small milestones that one would say that raising money lets you survive. And I think the part Jeff and I would love to talk about is surviving, right? I have a saying, which is, if you ever go to a charity event or event and you buy raffle tickets and they say, must be present to win, you don't want to be the person what they say, they draw your number and say, Loic, winner? Oh, he's not here. Let's pull the second number out. And surviving fundraising in many cases is how one survives. And Jeff's got a great story. So Jeff now, by the way, is SVP of communication products at Yahoo. So he's a much bigger deal than me. He runs all communication product at Yahoo. But he sold his company Zobni to Yahoo. But the story of survival and how many times you almost died is
well. We basically went out of business during the acquisition process. We ran out of money.
You ran out of money during the
about a week before we finished up. Yeah, I mean it was close. It was fine. I never was worried.
Did you disclose how much you sold for?
I've seen numbers.
What do you mean?
I've seen numbers. I've seen numbers in the press. We don't disclose. It was more than 50, less than 100.
That was a good exit.
I think.
Less than 50.
No, more than 50, less than 100. Somewhere in there. I don't know the exact. I don't remember the exact.
Why did
number.
you go to work with Marissa? Because that's from a startup guy. That's a change.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. When I got to Yahoo, I had worked at Yahoo before. I'd only worked at one big company in my entire life. I'd worked at Yahoo in 2005 to 2008.
Is that retirement or?
Hmm? It was like I tried to buy.
Sorry, it's my. So Peter,
where's
you
that picture's
picture
ready.
On stage?
Yeah. So this is why Jeff and I are here.
Yeah, that's how you raise money. You gotta get really intimate with the people that have money.
That's right.
I think we need some context here.
No.
Why do you need any context?
Context. It's fine. Imaginations, people. Imaginations.
Okay.
So anyway,
thank you, Peter, for that.
I think, first of all, I report to Marissa now. I did not report to Marissa when I got into Yahoo. I get so lucky, and this.
So sorry, you retired at Yahoo.
No, I've never worked this hard in my life. When I first got out of college, maybe. This is about as. Marissa works really hard, and as a result, I work very hard to keep up.
He has 40,000 servers he's got to keep up.
Yeah, each one takes a little care and feeding. It's like cats.
But I think, if we talk about some of the things, raising money.
Give us advice. 200 million in 24 months.
So look, raising money, I tell every entrepreneur this. If you're thinking about raising money, start earlier. I always tell people that it's a 3-month process. So pick a date of which you want to raise money.
You think raising's 3 months?
Well, I think 3 months, there's a process of a 3-month, which is start and pick a date. Never raise in the US, November, December, late July and August. VCs don't work. You want as many people to talk to at a time so that they all finish about the same time. So I call it the horse race, right? So if you jump on a horse, you're making sure if you jump on start with the slow horses and meet with the fast horses late. As Jeff said, you're typically the first 5 or 6 meetings of the VCs that you probably don't want to take money from, but they're good practice. They're probably going to ask some stupid questions, but some good questions. You're going to refine your pitch. My point of 3 months out is once you pick a date, find a metric within your business that you know you can control and drive massive growth. Linear growth in venture is flat. Any business that's just doing this, VCs will look at it and say, that's flat. Things that are doing this, they want to invest because they believe that if they don't invest now, they're going to miss out, right? So pick a KPI, retention, registration. Pick something in your data where you think you can really juice. And I say 3 months because pick the date, you start driving growth. 2 weeks into that growth, you start setting up appointments. You start meeting with people. It takes about 3 weeks to 4 weeks to meet. First meeting, second meeting, maybe if you're getting momentum, partner meeting, et cetera. You want to always keep pushing the engine of growth so that after a month into it, you have a month data looking back and say, look, I'm doing growth. The second month of this, you're pitching and pitching. Hopefully you're getting to a point where you actually get term sheets. This is negotiation leverage. More than one term sheet creates leverage. Deal terms of cap table, options, preference, board seats, all these things are leverage for
But
you.
hold on. So if you're an entrepreneur and you don't even know how to get your first meeting, do you remember back in the days
Yes.
before you had a Rolodex of 100?
Well, you think about this, we have $300 million raised here, so I will open to the floor.
at LeWeb 300
So
million.
we get, 100 and 200. So we get some questions, so keep going, but if we can get the microphones and we'll make this interactive. The topic being, if you're not following, is how to kill it and raise money.
Well, at the 2-month mark, again, it's about following data. Remember, once you get a term sheet, and again, there's still 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of diligence, and you don't want that data falling off a cliff. So pick a piece of data point within your data set that you can show impressive results and tell us. Then it's about storytelling. Venture and raising money is all about taking a product and taking your vision as the CEO and being able to tell a story that people want to believe that that's going to have some product market fit, but you are the CEO that has the vision, the drive, the hustle to accomplish and be able to see around the corner.
Is it almost better to raise before you have a product launch because you only sell the vision?
What do we?
Do you have a question?
I joke around.
Yeah,
I
nothing
joke
ruins
around
a
first
raise.
round capital.
You guys have questions?
Josh Koppelman always says, nothing kills a story like data, right? So you want to tell a story about your startup, you have a little bit of data, especially when you're really young and you're doing your angel or your Series A. Excessive data will generally hurt your ability to raise money. So it's better to do more confined. Basically, the more data you provide an investor, the more data they're getting basically for free that they would otherwise pay to get through the next round or the next round. So often when a entrepreneur comes back to me and says, well, the VCs asked me for this data, and they'll talk to me once I have this, and I go, yeah, well, then it should be valued at a Series B, not a Series A anymore. That's the data they would get in the next round. So they just want to de-risk as much as they can. It's a way of a VC passing, basically.
Any question?
Anyone want to know
Raise
how to
your
get
hand.
bought by a big company?
Are we
learned
so
this.
boring that there are no questions?
Look, the other topic I think people would appreciate here is to talk about acquisition. So both Jeff and I have been involved in a couple different transactions. I led the sale of PhotoBucket to MySpace for $300 million back in
For how
07.
much?
$300 million.
That's cool.
Bill Shrink, I was CEO of, we also sold that to MasterCard. But Jeff,
How much?
How much?
that one
How
we
much?
can't disclose.
Come on,
How much?
Same
But how
thing.
much?
Above 50, less than 100.
More than 50, less than 100.
You know, Zobney, the process of selling a company, and I'm literally in the process of helping a good friend of mine sell this company somewhere about $500 million and hopefully more for the last 3 weeks. It's interesting, the process of getting acquired, which is not different from fundraising, right? Telling the story, telling the vision, getting as many people in the process and at the same time, because
You get a better price?
the fear of missing out is real, especially the higher
Tell us
dollar.
about this. So let's say you talk to Google, and you will.
Look, you talking to Google, you got to call Yahoo, you got to call Amazon, you got to call, depending on what you're doing, Apple, of course, and then you call Microsoft, right? And then there's the big 5 or 6 people, I call them the big 5, and then there's the others. And then making sure everybody understands the process and making sure you're surviving the process. But as you know, Jeff and I were talking last night about one, which is get it signed. Just in some cases, time is your enemy.
I think what I see repeatedly from startups and entrepreneurs in general is they dramatically underestimate. They get so comfortable with risk that they dramatically underestimate the amount of risk and the amount of risk that they're in control of. So I'll see it whether it's on investment or on an acquisition. I'll see a CEO just really grind on one point that makes it's not material. I'm not exactly sure why we're grinding on it, but it adds a week to the process. If it takes 35, 42 days, 45 days to get acquired, they're adding 15, 20% to the time. That's a huge amount of risk on a binary result, especially if a deal falls apart that you're trying to go through on an acquisition. If it falls apart, the emotional impact on the employees is so massive that generally startups, over half of them will fall apart just from a failed acquisition attempt.
When you either do your fundraising or acquisition pitches, it's mostly in Silicon Valley?
Yeah, I mean,
What percentage in Silicon Valley?
we're
go to
based.
New York?
Yeah, we're based in LA, and I would say in the last 2.5 years, 95+% of my pitches.
95% of your fundraising.
95 of the fundraising, 95% of the dollars coming into all of our companies is from the Valley.
So coming in or acquisitions too.
I mean, Jeff is in the process, is in a position at Yahoo where he also acquires companies, and so I think his insights are also looking at how does large companies look at acquisitions. I always fall on the side of whether my own companies or helping friends through the process of selling a company. Look, I have one right now. I'm screaming at him and saying, "Look, you have to take this deal because it's $100 million to you personally. That is not just life-changing. That is generational." And so the fear of losing that deal is real. And every day that goes by, every 12 hours, every 24 hours, I'm checking in with him. What's going on? What's going on? And what's going on? Because the stock market. A friend of mine was probably would have been about a $200 million acquisition with Sony. Term sheet ready to be signed. Tsunami hit. The day they were going to sign the term sheet, tsunami hit. Deal's dead.
We were talking about how much money Peter and I've seen go. We talked about yesterday, just force majeure, acts of God that have wiped out deals, term sheets, acquisitions. For me, it was I was about to close $10 million with a big company on a strategic round. They had a little weird thing where their stock went down 15% and jumped right back up, and the board shut down all investments overnight. Like just that was it. And that was a big deal for me. That was like an entire Series C that I needed.
Jeff, you buy companies for Yahoo?
Yeah. I'm looking
Yourself?
now. If you guys are insanely talented, sure, of course.
You have your checkbook?
Yeah.
Can you react on what Peter said? 95% of the deals, either fundraising or acquisitions, happen in Silicon Valley.
So
are you buying here in Europe? Why?
Yahoo buys in Europe. I don't buy. My team in particular is mostly Sunnyvale based. So it's harder for us to buy companies that are outside the Valley. So listen, Yahoo does 3 deals. We do team deals, team and tech deals like Zobni or Flurry or these others. We do deals that are transformal like Tumblr, that are dramatically, deals that are expensive. You can almost add a 0 to the end of the acquisition if you see which side you're in. So single-digit millions.
How much did you buy Tumblr for?
I don't remember what the press said. I think
press
that was
said $1 billion. Something
that's
like
what I remember. It was before I got there.
So how do we get more deals in Europe?
Well, listen, I'll tell you what my venture capitalist David Wyden told me from Coastal Ventures. He said, you need to know the vice president of every one of the major acquirers. Pick your 10 people that may acquire you someday. You should know and have good relationships with all the VPs that run the groups that will eventually or could buy you a year before you even think it's possible that you might get bought. So I actively went out and started setting up those relationships. The racing things I do were actually the beginnings of that process of trying to figure out how do I attract really high-quality executives at large companies, get to spend and build a relationship with them, and I started doing the racing events in Sonoma as a way to get access.
Yeah. People underestimate the business development part of being a CEO, which is always, the networking and the relationships are real. I mean, I have a friend at one of the big 5, and as does Jeff, have many, where he's like, look, I'm in a position now where I want to buy companies that I know, that are friends of mine. And these are people that it's not meeting at a conference today and saying, hey, will you buy my company? It's a dinner, a cocktail party, networking, providing value first, right? This is a long, long game. Through the VCs that I know, the 100 or so that I pitch on a continuous basis, all of them, I've sent them deal flow before. I've got them into deals. I've done references for them. I've done 5, 6, I don't keep track, right? 5, 6, 10, 4, 5, 7 years worth of value that I've provided. And then when it's time
when you need them,
when I need it, I can text any VC.
Right.
I can email them. I know I will get 100% of their attention, 100% of the partnership. A fast no is the key to fundraising, by the way. And my other thing in key, both acquisitions and fundraising, I have this 24-hour rule. 24 hours. I have entrepreneurs come in and say, how'd that meeting go? Oh, man, I think they're interested. What happened inside the 24 hours of which they met with you? Did they text you? Did they email you? Did they call you? If they did nothing, it's a no.
I'll tell you that for Peter's example, I was going, Zobni, we wanted a deal to get done. We were ready to sell. So I had an acquirer. We were pretty close. I drove my car down there to meet with them. They gave me a price that was much lower than I had thought. We had been wrangling back and forth. And then my car ran out of battery. So I had lunch at Yahoo that afternoon, or that day. I had worked there before. I saw David Philo. I just said hello to him in the lunchroom. Mentioned I was working on stuff. I met with him the next day. He said, have you met with Marissa? I'm like, you know what? I've tried to talk to her a few times, and she's been really busy. He goes, well, let me see. He sent her a note. I got a note from her 45 minutes later. I met with her 8 hours later for breakfast at 7:45. I got a call from Corp Dev 2 hours after that. We had struck a deal.
No.
Yeah.
2 hours.
All because he ran out of battery in his Tesla.
And I had to waste some time, actually, while I charged up. So
amazing.
It's what I will tell you is
it doesn't happen in offices, never.
Listen, but I have to tell you, we talked to 15 companies. We had 2 term sheets before that, 3 term sheets probably before that at Zobni. I mean, we had really gotten to know, people knew the team, they understood what we were working on, I had told the story, they got what it was. So we were able to move relatively quickly because actually Marissa had gotten to know Zobni when she was at Google. So I think the thing I keep learning over and over again, and I think that will help Europe and entrepreneurs here is, it helps to have companies that know how to buy. That's a really big problem is that many companies wanted to buy Zobni, that we'd meet these partners and they'd be like, oh, we really want to buy. And we weren't always for sale, but when people were showing interest, and then I just found out the VP that was in charge of it didn't know how to buy, the company didn't know how to buy, and sometimes they'd come out flat out and say it. I don't even know what I'd do next. So I would be researching it. Let me find out who your corp dev person is. Let me find out who your partner is.
So you do their job. Right.
Yeah, I mean, Munjal Shah told me, who sold one of his companies to Google, I didn't get bought by Google, I sold my company to Google. It was like an incredible amount of effort to get bought by Google and to get that deal done. So Tony makes it look awesome because he's so relaxed and like laid back when he gets his deals done.
Well, I would also say people underestimate luck. I mean, this goes back to my thesis. Is
well, you're talking about luck, but you've been saying I have a CRM-like process with
but at the same time,
thousands of meetings.
The most difficult fundraisers I ever thought, I'd walk in, we have a company called Home Hero. We raised $2.5 million from Social Plus Capital, Chamath. And I can tell you, the first time we went out, somewhere between 75 and 80 no's. No's, 80, I mean, I was like, I'm losing my mojo. I've just lost it. I came back to the office, guys, I can't do this. And then just out of the blue, I said, you know what? I think who'd like this is Chamath. I sent him an email, sets up a meeting, 1 meeting, I'm in. I don't know if that's, I'm just saying like being present and making sure you're just continuing the process. And if you believe, I believe in this company so much.
That's the point.
But getting there.
All that time I spent for a year and a half to try to tell the story, to get to know all the VPs and all these companies was setting up for getting good luck. The actual process of getting bought is incredibly difficult. It's incredibly lucky. And it's just incredibly hard. It's incredibly fortuitous. And you control so little of I always tell entrepreneurs, you only control 25% of the process. 25% is your investors, 25% is the direct company, the person you're dealing with, and 25% is force majeure, something that's going to happen, a tsunami at the wrong time, an earthquake, a terrorist attack at the wrong moment. So time is much more risk. Another thing that David Wyden taught me is, he just sees it over and over again at Khosla. Entrepreneurs get to 90%, and then lean back and say, we're done. We got it basically done. And so I have this whole spiel at Yahoo, because big companies do this worse than small companies, where I say, you need capital D done. You need to finish 100%, because 98% done with a task, we're almost ready to hire the guy. He's going to take the job, not done. 0% done. We're probably going to get the term sheet tomorrow. We're basically done. I hear that all the time. Any qualifier for the word done is 0% done. And it's really that hustle that Peter shows, I think, more than me. It's the luck that I bring to the table that entrepreneurs just underestimate how much time, effort, energy it goes into making a moment lucky.
One last word, Peter.
The thesis is, how does Europe, I'm in LA, and LA has always been the second child to Silicon Valley. But to build infrastructure in an ecosystem, I've been focusing so much time in LA, you've got to have great investors to start. From there, you will eventually have a pillar company, a tentpole company. In LA, we've never had a company that went and acquired people. I think it's going to be Snapchat for us. I think that is the next tentpole company. It's massive.
Massive.
It's massive.
And he doesn't sell, right?
Google just announced they're just bought 12 acres, which will probably house 6,000 employees in LA. They just announced this last week.
No, 12 acres there. Yahoo just
put
I don't know if we're announcing how many acres we just bought, but yeah.
Yes, we meant. there is a lot happening, and that infrastructure in LA is what's going to happen over the next 5, because guess what? Snapchat's been around for about a year and a half. In 2.5 to 3 years, 4 years vest, those entrepreneurs go off and start the companies. That's what happened in the Valley. Google, Facebook, eBay, et cetera, et cetera. You can go down 25, 30 epic companies that went off and spun off. So Europe, it'll be 1, 2, 3, it'll take time, but investor base and money does solve all problems in startups, it turns out.
Well, that's a good word
It buys time.
Buys time.
Money solves everything in startups. Not only in startups, I guess. Well, Peter and Jeff, thanks very much for
Thanks very much.
coming
Thank
here for this conversation. That was a lot of fun.